Hello everyone and welcome back to another video on the channel. Today we are reviewing The Long Walk, directed by Francis Lawrence, starring Cooper Hoffman, David Jonsson, Garrett Wareing, Nyuot, Charlie Plummer, Ben Wang, Judy, Greer, and of course the great Mark Hamill. This movie is the adaptation of the Stephen King novel of the same name that follows a group of boys competing in a contest to walk till only one remains. It is walk or die with no finish line. And this will of course be a spoiler review for one of my favorite Stephen King adaptations to date, so if you haven't seen it and you are ready for a tough watch, definitely go check this one out in theaters. And for those who have, let's get into the movie.
There's one winner. And no finish line.
Now, before I do a rundown of the characters, which I think is the film's greatest strength, let's talk about the premise of the film and the world it inhabits. Similar to The Hunger Games, which the majority of those films were also directed by Francis Lawrence, we are in a dystopian future America where everyone lives under a police state. The film constantly hints at the state of the world, but we never truly dive into exactly the circumstances of how we got to this point. There was a war, books, songs, and other media that goes against this new regime have been banned, everyone is under extreme economic pressure, and the Long Walk contest is seemingly the only way to truly make it in a world where money is the most important thing. And I love how Lawrence is able to portray so much of how the world is, not only through well-performed exposition from the cast, but also through the environments we constantly move through. This entire movie follows our large cast of characters walking endlessly, which when I heard the premise, I became concerned that it would become monotonous real quick. But the premise forces the movie to honestly keep moving, both visually and plot-wise. There is never a dull moment or a flat or static visual. Seeing animal carcasses on the side of the road, or a twisted up bicycle, or a burning car in front of an abandoned police car adds so much to the world being built up through the entire runtime. And it also drives much of the conversations amongst the cast of characters that we follow. Now, before I get into my next point, yes, I do realize that this is a book written in 1979, much before The Hunger Games and Squid Game was a thing, but it's also hard to not compare this to those stories because they share a lot in common. What I love about this version of a last man standing competition over the others is that the majority of the characters, not including BARKOVITCH, are all rooting for the others to keep walking. No one wants to see the other players get their tickets. They're not fighting against one another. They're not actively trying to sabotage the others. There's no strategizing together with hope for more than one person surviving by the end. But despite the inevitability of them all dying, they choose to make friends along the way. And through this, there's a great sense of camaraderie that is formed between the entire cast that you can't help but fall right into as an audience member. Cooper Hoffman plays Garraty, who of everyone is the closest to the lead of this movie. You mostly follow the story through his perspective, and his own opinions of The Long Walk drive a lot of how this movie ends. If you somehow manage to win The Long Walk, you get an endless supply of riches, but most importantly to Garraty, you get one wish. And Garraty's wish would be to get one of the guns from the soldier at the very moment that he wins this contest, which he intends to use to kill the Major, played by Mark Hamill. You see through a series of flashbacks that Garraty's father shared stories of the old times through books and music that goes against the regime, which led to his execution at the hands of the Major himself, which sparks the whole revenge story of sorts from Garraty's perspective. And although the backstory and motivation to join the Long Walk in honor of his father's rebellious nature is the same in the book, the wish element is original to the film and is an addition that I very much like. This contrasts with McVries, played by David Jonsson, who has an opposing view on how to enact change in the world that they live in. McVries lost both of his parents when he was very young, resulting in him moving from orphanages to foster homes to being completely on his own. He's never truly known any comfort or security in the system for his whole life, and he states that he's always been walking. He thinks that with the prize money, he can possibly do some real good and has hope for the future that doesn't involve killing. But besides this one point in contrast between the two, both Garraty and McVries are incredibly similar when it comes to their opinions of the Long Walk and what it does to the men forced to volunteer. And they also both share the same level of empathy and humanity when it comes to seeing everyone die around them.
Come on, Curley. It's just you and me. Come on. Come on, Curley. Come on, Curley. Come on, young. Come on, Curley. Come on. Come on, Curley, come on!
Warning, number 7.
And I also really love the fact that they both profoundly change one another throughout the story and their goals swap by the end. Garraty is moved by McVries' speech about how dangerous vengeance is and how there's no going back from killing. This leads to him stealing McVries' plan to sit down when he can no longer keep walking, which was a very tragic moment at the ending of this film, and Garraty's sacrifice and rebellious tendencies pass on to McVries, who kills the Major in honor of his friends. This is a very different ending from the one in the book, and it's a change that I really really liked. The book ends with McVries sitting down and dying how he wanted to go, leaving Garraty and STEBBINS as the final two. STEBBINS collapses dead, leaving Garraty as the winner. There's a surreal aspect to the end where he sees this dark figure and walks towards it in his final moments of the book, which also does work really well, but I honestly think that that ending works better here for McVries. After shooting the Major, he continues to walk into the darkness, which continues what he had said before, that he has always been walking for his entire life. And him continuing to walk after doing something that could potentially change the world speaks louder than anything else he could have done. Jonsson has shown time and again that he is one of the best young actors working today through Rye Lane, Alien Romulus, and now this. And Cooper Hoffman, who I did like in Licorice Pizza, is truly incredible in this film as well. This movie is a lot more dialogue driven than The Hunger Games or Squid Game, which means that there is so much more pressure added onto these actors to make this film engaging, and their dynamic is so strong within this movie that it truly does propel this film to being one of my favorites of the year.
Let's be musketeers.
How the fuck are we gonna be musketeers? There's 4 of us.
Come on now. We stick together to where all that's left. How about that? All for one.
One for all.
Nah, and again.
Another standout character for me is Hank Olsen, played by Ben Wang, who has also been on the rise in the past year between Karate Kid Legends and ironically being cast in the next Hunger Games film. His character was easily one of the most likable characters who you just know won't make it to the ending of the film, which makes the lead up to his death just that much more dreadful. The film's unflinching portrayal of violence in each death never gets easier, and with us living in the current state of America with the never-ending string of gun violence, this story has truly never felt more relevant in its near 50 years of existence. I don't think I'll be able to shake Olsen's death that easily. Him yelling out that he did it all wrong in his final moments was truly devastating. Hank's death was definitely one of the more traumatizing ones in the film, along with Tut Nyuot's Baker, who is also a major standout in this film, with this being one of his only acting credits to date. The shock and gory nature of Hank's death prevented me from straight up bawling in the theater, but Baker's had much more emphasis on the tragedy. Him telling McVries and Garraty to not watch was one of the most heartbreaking lines in the film, and Lawrence's decision to keep the camera on Jonsson and Hoffman with everything happening out of focus in the background truly did break me. Another favorite of mine in this film was Charlie Plummer as BARKOVITCH, who is one of the only antagonistic characters within the film, but I honestly think that his story here is one of the more profoundly tragic ones. Him mocking a kid for being named Rank led to one of the earlier deaths inside of the film, leaving the guilt behind him as the forefront of his characterization. You can see him pushing everyone else away as possibly a strategy in order to make it through the walk, but his guilt never fades, leading to his desperate attempt to make amends with the rest of the group towards the ending of the film. His pleading and eventual death was one that we all saw coming, but rather than the film itself celebrating the death of an antagonist, the tragedy of his character becomes one of the more memorable and crushing deaths in the entire film. Garrett Wareing plays STEBBINS, who is revealed to be one of the Major's bastard sons, who joined the Long Walk in order to wish for his family to recognize him and bring him in. Although his character was mostly in the background for the first 2/3 of the film, supplying a lot of info and exposition to how the Long Walk worked, the film's shift to focus on him in the final stretch also left a lasting impression, and the fact that he got sick in this very moment, and the fact that this character probably would have won this contest if it wasn't for that, was also really just tragic and ironic. And I can honestly go on and on talking about the many great characters and performances throughout this film. Parker's death was also an interesting one, with him being able to take out one of these soldiers with him. His death was one of those shots I do wish they cut away from, as it was so graphic in its nature and it was so hard hitting, but again, this film is truly unflinching with how it highlights the horrors of its violence. Harkness's death was also a tough one to watch, as his ankle was broken and twisted sideways, which got one of the largest reactions from the audience. The first kid to go also had a very lasting impact, as it sets the tone for the rest of the film. Someone's leg gets ran over by a tank, with the soldiers still without fail giving him all 3 warnings before finally putting him out of his misery. Some choose to run and fail to escape, others can't make it up a hill, which resulted in one of the most intense scenes in the entire film, as people were just dropping like flies. There are so many moments in this film that hit incredibly hard, and I can't praise the filmmakers enough for crafting something truly affecting. Francis Lawrence's direction, J.T. Molyneux's script, Mark Yoshikawa's swift pacing in the edit, Joe Williams' constantly moving cinematography, and Jeremiah Freight's haunting score. So much talent went into this film, making The Long Walk one of my favorites of the entire year. And yes, I do think that this is one of the best Stephen King adaptations, as it cuts out a lot of the fluff from the book, which I found to be a bit too grating in its length, with an ending that I think is much more profound in its meaning.
What, walk me a while?
Yeah, I do, Pete.
But those are just going to be my thoughts on The Long Walk. What are some of your favorite Stephen King adaptations, and is this one up there on your list of favorites? Let me know in the comment section down below, and as always, if you enjoyed this video, make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel to see more reviews just like this. I have reviews for The Conjuring Last Rites and Weapons already up on the channel, with reviews for Chris Stuckman's Shelby Oaks coming very soon. So thanks everyone for watching, and I hope to see you all in my next one.